The Nexus Project. Without question, this is the most significant scientific endeavor in galactic history, representing the penultimate achievement of the Elden intellect. If indeed we reach our final goal, then the fate of our people, even that of the universe itself, will be irrevocably changed. The data generated by the project will be vast and invaluable, and it is within the Elder Cube that all of our secrets here on Nexus will be contained. The time has finally come. As the Nexus Project begins, we embark on the greatest scientific experiment in the long history of our people. And if we are successful, then we will have achieved what others have only dreamed of. We will have altered the destiny, not just of the Elden, but of the universe itself.
I am very pleased with the progress that we have made on the Elderroot initiative. It has long been known to us that plants of a certain age and size develop a primitive awareness of their surroundings, but we have amplified the awareness exponentially. Put simply, we are creating a sentient tree. What secrets will it reveal when at last it speaks?
Creating sentience from primal life is an important aspect of the Elderroot initiative. By constructing these primal infusers, I have been able to create a stable physiological matrix around an advanced power core, resulting in an organism that is created from pure energy. The success of this experiment bodes well for the larger goals of the Nexus Project.
Although the Elderroot initiative should be counted a resounding success, there have been unforeseen side effects. A large amount of excess primal energy is radiating from some of the tree's roots, resulting in small mutations of the subterranean wildlife. Over time, this situation could become increasingly worse.
My exploration of this cave system has revealed a hive of voracious subterranean parasites located in close proximity to the primary root system of the Elderroot Initiative's test subject. Although they do not currently pose a threat, in time it could become a very serious issue. We must carefully monitor these pests and exterminate them if necessary.
These trees display a measurable proto-sentience, almost an awareness of the energetic fields of primal life inherent to the forest. If another plant or organism in this region feels pain, these trees do also. The existence of such advanced sensitivities in plant life is unprecedented. This planet is indeed the perfect place to complete our great work.
These large hybrid humanoids have evolved an extrasensory perception of the forest's collective life force, resulting in altruistic behaviors focused on protecting it from harm. Their size and strength, as well as their aggression when provoked, make them formidable guardians.
Fascinating. These primitive totemic sculptures are infused with high levels of primal life, providing a natural defense against damage and decay. It seems the hulking forest guardians who created them have an instinctive grasp of both infusion and evocation, making them more dangerous and infinitely more interesting.
The primal energy matrix in this region is exponentially stronger than any I have ever measured. As a result, I have created a device that can directly access the matrix and then convert and store the power for later use. Such technology has always been theoretically feasible, but the unique properties of Nexus have made it a reality. With access to this almost unlimited power source, there is almost nothing we cannot achieve here.
I have observed these flying insects for quite some time, and I have been very impressed with their intelligence and advanced communal behaviors. They are also unbelievably aggressive, and none more than their formidable queen. I have seen more than one unsuspecting predator fall prey to her deadly sting. So exhilarating.
Along with my recent focus on developing augmentation technology, I have also been experimenting with the advanced cloning techniques developed by the progenitors. By extracting an organism's primal pattern, it is possible to create unlimited biological duplicates, which can then be significantly enhanced using augmentation. Applications. Rapidly creating a powerful military force would be the most obvious. This facility has been constructed solely for the purpose of producing and storing omniplasm, the nanite-infused liquid that makes augmentation technology possible. From this location, I can directly modify the nanite's algorithms which govern the creation of cybernetic enhancements, providing me with precise control at the molecular level. We approach ever closer to the goals of the project.
The caretaker construct created by the makers is extremely impressive, but my observations into its creation have revealed what may be a serious design flaw. Although the size and scope of the project requires that the caretaker's personality architecture support multiple avatars working in concert, it also opens the possibility of fractures in the case of system failure. This could lead to unproductive, even violent competition between the avatars in certain circumstances.
The incomparable purity of primal plasmas on Nexus creates a number of interesting possibilities. By harnessing the power of these often volatile substances, I have created a working prototype of the plasmatic cannon. The Archon, contrary to his usual inability to see my genius, seemed very interested in the weapon, hinting that there might be a use for something like it in the near future.
I have walked through this forest for hours and stopped to collect my thoughts. There are times when I envy these trees, whose sole purpose is to thrive and grow in the small space allotted to them. Silent and strong, they are unburdened by ambition or malevolence or regret, and blissfully unaware of the darkness which often surrounds them.
This forest is truly impressive. I must admit that even with the powerful tools at my command, it would be difficult to create such a beautiful environment. That being said, one must not forget the dangers that exist here. The many vicious creatures on the hunt for prey. Being enthralled by such savage beauty could surely lead to disaster.
My readings indicate a pure source of primal life within this forest, leading to the tree that now floats above me. What a fascinating specimen. In all of my long life, I have never observed an organism so purely infused with primal power. I must take a closer look. What further secrets will it reveal? What a discovery! The beauty and complexity of this tree's interior is amazing, almost as if the tree itself created a space for others to explore and experience. It would not surprise me if this tree was blessed with a form of higher intelligence, perhaps connected to the planet's collective life force in a way that we do not yet completely understand. Nexus continues to inspire me.
I have completed my survey of the OS1 city. Although I cannot deny their formidableness, there is an oppressive weight to their architecture which makes it difficult to endure for long. Sometimes I fear that the progenitors may have been too successful in their creation. Standing in the shadows of these massive walls, I feel a sense of undeniable foreboding.
The development of the OS-1 has been a very impressive achievement for the progenitors, and the Watchers continue to be impressed by their adherence to protocol in their training. But despite these accomplishments, I still have concerns about the speed of their advancement. We have already exceeded the established parameters for physical and psychological control.
These Moody's have become so much more interesting since I re-engineered them. With their new skills in necromantic evocation, they are able to reanimate their dead as well as the corpses of local creatures. Some of my colleagues consider this modification both grisly and unnecessary. Perhaps I will improve upon them next.
Our research here has been enlightening. By harnessing the power of Loftite crystals, this tower has created a violent storm. The sheer power unleashed has exceeded our expectations, indicating that we will reach the final stage of the project.
The Primal Disruptor provides an abundant source of power by transforming elemental life forms into refined Loftite crystals. Their sacrifice is necessary if we are to advance the great work that we are doing here.
By extracting pure primal air from Loftite crystals, the tower below is able to generate wildly different meteorological effects. Currently, the machine is generating a storm, but it could just as easily create destructive bolts of lightning, or a whirlwind of such power it would tear this facility apart. What a sight that would make. These xenobites are one of my most elegant creations. They can survive in decelerated gestation for hundreds of years, only emerging from their eggs if their safety is threatened. My little pet Skeech seems fascinated with them, and I often find her watching over the egg clusters from afar. These Loftite crystals are fascinating. I have never before encountered a substance so purely infused with primal air, resulting in an extraordinary localized reduction in the force of gravity. It seems the beginning of our little science project can be counted a success.
Each generation of Yeti Alphas that have lived in this cave have displayed drastic physical changes brought about by prolonged exposure to the Loftite crystals located nearby. Interesting. I wonder what a more focused, controlled experiment might further reveal about this phenomenon.
The sheer geological variety on the surface of the planet is awe-inspiring, a testament to the titanic forces unleashed during its formation. The more time I spend here, the harder it is to imagine the planet's fate once we have achieved the ultimate goals of the project.
I have never before directly infused an organism with such high levels of primal energy, and I find the results to be staggering. The test subject has undergone a dramatic physical transformation, and now displays previously unrecorded skills in evocation that make it a dangerous creature indeed. This revelation bodes well for the project's next phase.
The Archon has commanded me to destroy the last of my little Skeech, but I cannot bring myself to do so. Is it their fault that I have created them to be curious? Indeed not. Still, I must follow the Archon's order. I will release them into this cave, and surely this unforgiving planet will do the deed for me.
The structure and complexity of these subterranean caverns far exceeds my expectations. I have wandered them for days now, and it seems there is no end to them. And I must admit, there are times I would rather stay down here than to witness those things taking place on the surface.
I always knew that we would observe indigenous life here, but I continue to be shocked at its variety. Take these rock creatures. Fascinating. Inert chunks of stone infused with primal life, displaying a simple intelligence.
This place is unique in all of the universe.
These little blue humanoids are perhaps the most annoying life form that I have yet encountered on this planet. On more than one occasion, they have stolen and dismantled my research equipment as I have been surveying these caverns, and they are somehow familiar to me. I know I have seen them somewhere before.
Interesting. These organisms did not arise here, but instead were created by one of the progenitors and then subsequently scheduled for termination. I will have to report this infraction to the Archon. Such emotional tendencies will lead to the project's failure if they cannot be contained.
There are times when I gaze down upon the majesty of the planet's surface and wonder at all that we have achieved in so little time. To the uninformed observer, this place would merely appear as an unassuming world at the edge of the galaxy. But only we know the secrets of what lies beneath its placid facade. The importance of our work requires that we have extraordinary security, and this annihilator is an impressive facet of a nearly perfect system. We must ensure that nothing threatens the success of the project, whether from outside the planet or from within.
The process of augmentation is an important step for the larger goals of the project. Through our advanced nanotechnology, we can now cybernetically enhance organisms, correcting the inherent weaknesses and flaws that inevitably rise through natural evolution. True perfection might finally be within our grasp.
I find the Maker's latest innovation distasteful, and I strongly disagree that we cannot reach perfection through biological means alone. This augmentation is a blunt tool at best, and destroys an organism's natural insight and instincts by installing cerebral mechanisms for control. I will soon bring my objections to the Archon.
Although powerful, this process of augmentation seems dangerous and unpredictable. Without the proper controls, the nanites responsible for creating cybernetic enhancements could spread like a virus, putting the larger goals of the project at risk. The Makers must proceed carefully.
The Caretaker is one of my greatest creations, a fabricated sentience whose intelligence is almost without limit. Such power allows him to monitor and control all aspects of the project simultaneously, although I do fear that a catastrophic event could lead to a critical fracturing of his personality core.
I have long observed these arachnids, and I am very impressed with their evolutionary development. Structurally, they are almost without flaw, blessed with an instinctual predatory aggression that ensures their continued survival. I have collected extensive data on the species, and I plan to use it in my own future designs.
My work within the Exo-Lab has been progressing well, but any experiments are bound to produce unwanted results. Instead of wasting power on biological disposal, I have merely discarded the failed experimental organisms into the wild. I have no doubt that the inherent imperfections of these dregs will result in their demise. In order to achieve the goals of the project, I have created a custom humanoid template to use for future designs. This work is extremely complex, as I am precisely engineering every biological system of the template, instead of manipulating those from existing organisms. Nature rarely provides the perfection that my work on the project will require.
The Order of the Makers have designed a planet-wide defense system to ensure the ongoing security of the project, and this Annihilator construct is one of its most impressive manifestations. The sheer destructive power of this machine is extraordinary. Personally, I hope that a situation arises that would allow me to observe its capabilities.
The size, strength, and ferocity of organism X-87 is awe-inspiring, and I often lure unsuspecting creatures near its lair to admire the sheer savageness of their slaughter. More than once I have thought about subjecting a number of my short-sighted colleagues to the same fate. These small bipeds are little more than an annoyance. Their creation of ritual masks, which seem to indicate both mood and social structure, is of little interest to me. But perhaps there are some improvements that I can make upon their base design.
Despite the objections of his order, Progenitor Nazrek has made a number of enhancements to these so-called moodies. Certain individuals now display an inherent skill in evocation, allowing them to reanimate their dead. Nazrek's questionable choices will be noted.
I continue to be impressed by our progress. The sheer variety of life forms that have arisen here far exceed even our most conservative projections, indicating that Nexus will indeed provide a suitable location for achieving the ultimate goals of the project.
These trees are fascinating. My analysis indicates that they are infused with extremely high levels of primal air, resulting in their elevated status. Curious. The existence of such a life form indicates that the latter phases of the project might indeed be attainable. This mineral is unlike anything I have ever encountered. Heavily infused with primal life, it appears to accelerate physiological systems, resulting in enhanced traits like increased stamina and faster reflexes. I must remember this. Such a substance presents interesting possibilities.
A voracious appetite and accelerated reproductive cycle makes these insects a dangerous threat to any ecosystem. I have been tempted to breach protocol and unleash them myself, just to see the resultant chaos, but the danger that such an infestation presents outweighs even my own personal desires.
Given the danger posed by a possible surface infestation of these terminites, I have created a fail-safe mechanism to immolate the queen, violently and decisively interrupting the central hive's reproductive cycle. I sincerely hope I have reason to test the system's capability.
The evolution of the fulcrum continues to amaze me. Having released the initial prototypes into the wild after data collection, they were not expected to survive, but instead, they have flourished into a successful, albeit primitive, civilization. Their recent worship of Auroria introduces complexities into their ongoing development.
This region displays a stunning array of biological diversity, a result of the accelerated evolutionary forces unleashed during the project's first phase. The Shapers are deploying a terraformer to the east, and I am curious to see what effect the device will have on these organisms.
This terraformer is a powerful device, allowing those of my order to dynamically change the physical properties of local terrain. At the same time, it initiates the hyper-accelerated evolution of local creatures, allowing them to better survive in the new environment. Such power is liberating and dangerous.
These avian beasts and their pathetic cultural charade are a growing threat to the project's goals in this region. They should have been destroyed once they had served their purpose. I begin to tire of Omna's misguided concern for these inferior creations.
This target is the perfect location for my own experiments in augmentation technology. Although Vorian has successfully augmented living creatures, I am extremely interested in observing how the omniplasmic nanites will respond to inanimate tissue. I'm certain the results will be monstrously fascinating.
As a virtual construct, the Caretaker is unequaled in all of our history. Its advanced neural core simulates complex cognitive thought process and intuition, allowing it to closely monitor and maintain all of our experiments here on Nexus. We must ensure it never experiences a critical failure.
Our experiments here can be counted a success. It appears that the omniplasmic nanites are sufficiently intelligent to reanimate and enhance the skeletal remains of long-dead organisms. As expected, these creatures are significantly less intelligent than their living counterparts, but they are still deadly, along with being pleasantly macabre.
These massive skeletons belong to creatures that are no longer found on the planet's surface. Undoubtedly, they existed during the project's first phase. Although their rise and subsequent extinction were inevitable, I still find it tragic that such magnificent beasts were not able to survive.
It is easy to be mesmerized by the beauty of this place, by the natural wonders that surround us at every turn. But we must never forget exactly what we are trying to achieve here, and the inherent dangers that await us if indeed the project is successful.
These bipedal predators are particularly nasty. They are highly territorial, unnaturally aggressive, and display coordinated attack behaviors as they stalk their prey. Although I generally consider nature to be little more than a blind invalid playing games of chance, I must admit that these creatures are an inspired product of evolution. I must remember them for my future work.
Starcom Station is one of my most elegantly designed facilities. A powerful communications device that allows us to securely send massive amounts of scientific data across the vastness of space, without fear of signal loss or interruption. Given the importance of the information that we will soon transmit, my extensive efforts in its design and construction were undoubtedly justified.
The Elder Cube is an extraordinary piece of technology. A storage device with almost limitless capacity, coupled with advanced cryptographical algorithms that are statistically impossible to decipher. For any other endeavor, such a device would be gratuitously exorbitant. But the vast quantities of data that we have compiled in the Nexus Project push even the Elder Cube to its limits. It must never fall into the wrong hands.
I have requested that the makers install a manual override for the Elder Cube's security systems. Although such a crude technological solution is rarely necessary, it would be unforgivable if the information which describes our monumental achievement here on Nexus was rendered completely inaccessible due to an unforeseen catastrophic event.
I am very satisfied with the outcome of my most recent creation, a plant-animal hybrid with highly specialized environmental camouflage. The beast lures its prey by appearing as a flowering plant, and then bursts from the ground to viciously dispatch it. Although this creature has little relevance to the greater project here on Nexus, I often come here to admire the elegant brutality of its design.
My initial experiments with nanotechnological enhancement have been extremely promising. I see almost unlimited potential in this technology, if indeed I am able to harness its power. I must work harder. This creature is an early, imperfect manifestation of the process.
The Pell have begun to display irregularities, no doubt caused by prolonged exposure during the project's first phase. Certain individuals are now molecularly attuned to specific primal energies, resulting in behavioral aberrations not unlike religious fervor. Although they are still very capable servants, I fear that they have undergone an irrevocable transformation.
The geological characteristics of this region are very interesting. Subterranean scans reveal numerous reservoirs of primal water just beneath the surface, often resulting in explosive geysers that burst forth from the ground. Such phenomena are to be expected given the inherent instability of the substance, but the Pels, sadly, have begun to view them as something more divine.
I've read the reports concerning the Pel's recent behavioral transformation, but I had not realized the true impact of the changes until I saw this building that they recently constructed without our knowledge. I can only describe it as some kind of religious temple, devoted to some undefined aquatic deity that a number of them have begun to worship. I have been assured that this does not represent a threat to the success of the project, but I personally find their strange devolution a point of concern.
I believe that I have finally developed a stable process for biomechanical improvement. I call it augmentation. Using nanotechnology, I have been able to re-engineer organisms at the molecular level, eradicating their inherent weaknesses through cybernetic enhancements. The Archon was extremely impressed with my early simulations, but has requested more tangible results. I begin work on biological subjects immediately.
I have studied Vorian's little pet, and even I must admit that his augmentation process is impressive. By merely injecting an organism with nanite-infused omniplasm, he has been able to cybernetically enhance their inherent biological traits. As a result, this spider is faster, more aggressive, and deadlier. But this process takes time, and time is not always a luxury we enjoy. I am currently developing a more rapid process for biomechanical re-engineering.
The Watchers are extremely concerned about the so-called recombination experiments of Maker's Arconis. Not only do they display a blatant disregard for scientific principle and protocol, but I personally feel as if they are motivated by a growing sense of inferiority that Arconis feels in relation to Maker Vorian and his recent successes. I must speak with the Archon before things progress too far.
I am very close to perfecting my recombination technology. Instead of utilizing nanites to build biomechanical constructs, my recombinator removes the target limbs and organs, and then directly replaces them with mechanical constructs. Granted, the process is violent, traumatic, and bloody, and at this stage the resulting creatures are physiologically unstable. But I still feel as if this is a marked improvement over Vorian's augmentation technology. And the accusation of Ionis that this is somehow a personal obsession driven by my sense of inadequacy? Preposterous. The Archon continues to disappoint me with his short-sightedness. My recombination chamber is a vastly superior alternative to omniplasmic augmentation. True, most subjects do not survive the process, and those that do are often physically and psychologically scarred. But these are mere details. I regret that I will not be able to continue this innovative research.
This is a perfect location for my upcoming experiment. By tapping the massive reservoir of primal water beneath this lake, I hope to weave a being of pure primal energy. If successful, this will represent a landmark in the history of my order and a giant step towards achieving the goals of the project itself. I suppose I must mention the technological contribution of the Makers, although I consider it trivial at best.
I have completed my survey of this region, and I am as impressed with its geologic diversity as I have been with the rest of this planet. It is difficult to imagine a more suitable location to embark on the project, although I continue to harbor concerns about the consequences if indeed we are successful. Not surprisingly, my opinions have not been popular among my colleagues.
This region is truly fascinating. The intensity of its natural primal matrices is beyond anything that I've ever experienced, allowing me to manifest evocations of unexpected power. These intensities also have a tangible impact on life forms that exist in this forest, often resulting in individuals with drastically different physiologies and biological traits. This particular location seems especially prone to the phenomenon.
Aviel has asked me to construct a number of power converters for what she calls her secret little project inside the nearby caves. I generally try to avoid the kind of trouble that comes with the Weavers, and especially Aviel. But cooperation and collaboration among the orders will be vital if we are to achieve our great work on Nexus. I only hope she does not betray my trust.
The inherent instability of primal water opens up a number of interesting possibilities. By weaving malignant biological material with the substance, I have been able to create an extremely virulent gaseous agent, one that even in the smallest amount has proven fatal to test subjects. I must be cautious. The opportunity for mayhem among my colleagues often encourages me to ignore protocol.
I have built this Hall of Primal Powers to serve as a celebration of the Nexus Project and all those who follow its singular purpose. Here, in the Grand Entrance Hall, one may see how Elden dominion over the primal elements allows us to shape and alter the very fabric of reality. All who visit these halls shall be witness to our true power and be given a vision of the great work to come. The Chamber of the Orders. Take in its magnificence, and be as one with the greatest minds the universe has ever known. The Progenitors, the Makers, the Evokers, the Watchers, the Shapers, and the Weavers. The collected knowledge of these scientific orders is almost inconceivable, granting them the power to unlock the very mysteries of creation itself. It is through this power that we will complete the Nexus Project, and soon the universe itself will bend to our unfaltering will. Soon our greatest endeavor begins. Long has the universe been a place of chaos, a flawed, unpredictable existence with no regard for order. No longer will the laws of reality dictate our limitations. Through the Nexus Project, we shall create a state of perfection across the cosmos. The Elden legacy will be written in the stars, standing as an eternal testament to our rightful ascension. As we near the first phase of the Nexus Project, I recently called an assembly of the Orders. I thought that it was important to once again convey the gravity of what we are trying to accomplish here. I told them that this is no longer about science or technology. Our work on this planet is something greater. It is something truly divine.
My recent studies on this planet have reminded me of the relative fragility of biological life. Prone to mutation, degradation, and disease, it is a wonder that life has proliferated throughout the galaxy. Of course, we now have the power to cure disease and correct harmful mutations in any organism. And if we are successful here on Nexus, we will never have to worry about such trivialities again.
I have recently finished the design for the 6 primal focuses that will be located at various locations across planet Nexus. These will be essential to completing the first phase of the project, but I foresee other, more interesting applications for them as well. I am not one to sing my own praises, but these devices are some of the most advanced pieces of technology that the Elden have ever created.
I have witnessed a number of disturbing behaviors in certain individuals, and a growing schism between the orders as the project continues. Although this was not completely unforeseen, I do have concerns about the unexpected variables and their consequences.
I am very pleased with the status of the OS-1 experiment. The rapid development of their civilization is a testament to their strength and intelligence, although even I must admit that they are progressing at an alarming rate. Although they both fear and revere us, we must be careful to maintain control.
The Makers have assured me that the focus of air can theoretically be used for the Auroria protocols, although I find it hard to believe that the test subject will survive exposure to such tremendous levels of primal energy. What unimaginable creature will step forth when the process is complete?
The progenitor's objections to augmentation have forced me to rethink my design, especially as it relates to sentient beings. Although I cannot stand their meddling, I must admit the validity of their observations. I am creating a newer prototype with much more subtle cerebral controls. The subject may not even know what has taken place.
The focus of air represents one of the Elden's greatest technological achievements, its scale and complexity almost impossible to comprehend. I was there to witness its sheer power at the genesis of this project, and it is a sight I will never forget.
The OS-1's engineering skills are formidable. Every aspect of their architecture is intimidating, conveying their inherent need to conquer and subjugate. In time, they will be an unstoppable military juggernaut. I would not relish the thought of being their enemy.
There is an aspect of our work with the OS-1 that disturbs me. For reasons of control, we have decided to approach our creations as omniscient gods, wielding powers beyond comprehension. It is my fear that there are those among us who actually believe this ruse, and that such reckless thoughts will lead to our destruction.
I have long studied the evolution of these predatory birds. They are fast, fierce, and intelligent. I have witnessed their flocks engage in coordinated attacks, but I have also observed them turn on their own if an individual exhibits weakness. I find it very curious. They are not so very unlike ourselves.
Air has always been my favorite of all the primal powers. It is dynamic, wild, and inherently resistant to control. I visit this region often, drawn by the powerful storms that often surround the focus of air. It serves as a useful reminder that there are still many things beyond our control.
Our recent modifications of the focus of air for the Auroria protocols has given me insight about other ways it might be utilized. With only a few minor adjustments, it could be transformed into a powerful weapon of unprecedented destructive capabilities. We must ensure that it never falls into the wrong hands.
This canyon is a perfect place to achieve the first phase of the Auroria protocols. Near enough to the focus of air that we can draw latent primal energy from the surrounding atmosphere. Our servants, the Pel, have been very helpful in constructing the system, continuing to prove their usefulness to the project.
Due to their role in our experiments here on Nexus, the Pel seem to have developed attunements and sensitivities to particular primal powers. and it appears as if these traits are being passed from one generation to the next. It will be interesting to see how this situation develops.
We have finished the incubator and installed it in the cave at the end of this canyon, and one of the Pel has volunteered to be our first test subject for sentient infusion. I look forward to seeing the outcome. If we are successful, achievement of the Auroria protocols will soon be within our grasp.
The Pel seem to have taken a keen interest in the outcome of the upcoming experiment, one that sounds less like science and more like religious fervor. I fear that we have done our faithful servants irreparable harm in our experiments here. I can only hope that we achieve success. I am very surprised that AV3 has thrived on Nexus, especially given the fact that we released them so quickly into the wild. Most test organisms are not so resilient. The Weavers would say that primal air gives them strength and power, but I personally feel that it is a testament to my own elegant design.
These Fulcrum, as the AV3s have come to call themselves, have developed a fervent religion based upon the worship of their god, Auroria. This is an interesting development, given the origins of each, but I feel as if this relationship, if allowed to continue, might present significant difficulties at some point in the future.
Now this is an unexpected surprise. These early AV3 prototypes have survived, and now call themselves the Merg. My records indicate they were scheduled for termination based on defects in their design, but it looks as if they've escaped into the wild and are now subservient to the Fulcrum. Perhaps we have less control here than we truly believe.
I find it interesting that the Fulcrum females have been chosen as the voice of their new god, especially given how dominant the males were designed. That being said, the females are far more intelligent and inherently skilled than their male counterparts. This, of course, is not surprising at all.
Having repeatedly heard their designation, the OS1s have now begun to call themselves the Osen. They have also begun to exhibit increased brutality and aggression as a result of their training and development. Although these traits are essential to their design, I fear that these tendencies could become unmanageable in the future.
The Osen females display impressive skills with infusion and evocation that have evolved far beyond the simple lessons that I have shared with them. One individual created a powerful elixir that allowed her to subjugate inferiors, making them into mindless slaves. Our children are learning far more from us than we expected.
The primal energy we have collected in the canyon is more than sufficient to power the incubator, and this location serves as a conduit to regulate its flow and consumption. Currently, there is no plan to use the excess energy, but the Pel have assured me it will not go to waste.
Due to the sheer volume and intensity of the power that is being channeled through this cavern, I have witnessed the spontaneous instantiation of elemental life forms on a number of occasions. Although these rarely live for long, it is feasible that devices could be made to stabilize them. I shall speak with the Pel about my theory, and see if they can aid me in constructing such a device.
The incubator is now complete, and the Pel test subject has been prepared for primal infusion. With this experiment, I feel as if we are boldly venturing into an unexplored abyss, shattering the boundaries of science as we pursue our great work here on Nexus. I would never tell the others this, but I truly believe that divinity is finally within our grasp. After long discussions among the orders, we have decided to move forward with the Cassian Initiative. They are sufficiently advanced to have warranted our attention, and analysis indicates that they will be the perfect leaders for our new empire, one that will rule the galaxy until our great work here on Nexus is complete.
We have completed our design for the Lumini project, and now all that we require is a human specimen from which the hybrid organism will be created. After studying the list of acceptable candidates provided to us by the Makari, I have chosen the female known as Sanctoria. Her strength, beauty, and fearlessness will make her the perfect mother for the new ruler of our galactic empire. I look forward to her imminent arrival.
The Lumini hybrid known as Dominus has now completed his training with Sanctoria and will soon leave for planet Cassus to rule. Despite my initial concerns about both the Cassian Initiative and the Lumini project, I must admit that I am completely satisfied with their progress thus far. Dominus is truly an impressive creature, and I am certain that the Cassians will follow him without question. The age of the Dominion is now at hand. The creation of the Lumini by the progenitors is a true milestone in the history of the project. Aside from being the first successful hybrid with an extraterrestrial species, it also represents the genesis of a powerful empire that will extend beyond the confines of this world.
I have always respected the simple elegance of arachnid design, blessed with the pure single-mindedness of insectoid intelligence. They viciously hunt and dispatch their prey, unencumbered by illusions of conscience or morality. These are the natural laws that the project should aspire to.
Despite the Archon's approval, it is the opinion of the Watchers that there are inherent flaws in the design of the Lumini. The progenitors have made it very clear that genetic flaws may arise from multi-generational breeding, perhaps leading to delusion, madness, and other forms of mental instability.
The subterranean creatures that exist beneath these rocks will serve as suitable test case for the most recent enhancements to augmentation technology. Currently, they are little more than mindless beasts, but this technology should be able to greatly enhance their biological limitations. This experiment was a success, as these creatures now display greater strength, ferocity, and intelligence as a result of the augmentation. I have extracted all useful data and will now seal the caverns that contain the affected subjects. It would be most unwise to unleash this population upon the surface.
I came here to spend a few moments alone, away from the others, but I must admit that the grisly collection of old bones here has put me in a dark mood. What stories would these creatures tell, had they not met their deaths here in the dark of these caverns? And what stories will our bones tell if we somehow meet an untimely demise?
I continue to be fascinated by these feral humanoid organisms, so much so that I have decided to genetically modify the aggressive tendencies and intellectual capacity of their alpha male. I assume that this trait will be passed down to future generations, making this group significantly more dangerous to anyone who might happen upon them. I know the Watchers will not approve, but the possibility of unexpected violence tends to make me reckless.
The black volcanic stone in this region is naturally infused with high levels of primal earth and life, resulting in the formation of these elemental creatures. I have decided to install a number of primal focusers in this particular location, assuming that it will result in the creation of a larger and more destructive specimen. Perhaps I will unleash it on the Maker's new augmentation facility to the east. Without any true natural predators, these insects are beginning to spread rapidly throughout this region, and their massive hives serve as a magnificent example of their industriousness and social coordination. Their queens are equally impressive. I have witnessed more than one creature fall victim to their venomous sting.
These crystals contain almost pure concentrations of primal life, an interesting anomaly that resulted from the first phase of the project. Given sufficient inherent knowledge and skill, an individual could use these crystals to transform the environment, similar to the technological process employed by our terraformers. Of course, there are currently no such individuals on Nexus beyond ourselves.
The spread of Ona's little pet Skeech across the planet is generally infuriating, but I must admit that their latest evolution has me intrigued. It seems their shamans have developed the ability to evoke explosive plasmic mutations using the ground-up bones of sacrificial victims. Now that is the kind of pet that I could appreciate.
The Maker's continued efforts to perfect this augmentation technology is disturbing, as if their tiny machines could possibly be an improvement on Folk's biological design. Perhaps they should visit the OS-1 city to the south. Could their cybernetic monstrosities ever construct such an impressive monument?
It appears that my recent modifications to the omniplasmic nanites has not been well received. I amplified aggression protocols, resulting in an exponential increase in hostile behavior. Personally, I feel as if this was an improvement, but the Archon was not amused when one of the augmented test subjects attacked him. Short-sighted buffoon. He has ordered the facility to be sealed indefinitely.
As I feared, a number of subjects from the Terminite experiment escaped and have established a colony directly beneath this power converter. The noxious gases emitted from this hive are both poisonous and corrosive, rendering the unit unusable. Although trivial, this lapse in security and procedure is part of an alarming continuing trend among the orders.
Although we have had a number of difficulties in the early phases of the project, I cannot help but still be amazed at the progress we are making towards our ultimate goal. To think that soon we will have the power to perfect nature itself, to correct the mistakes of an inherently flawed universe. The city of Kel Voreth is perhaps the most impressive example of architecture and engineering that the OS-1s have ever produced. Since their creation, they have made rapid technological advancements that exceed even our most conservative estimates. Soon, they will be an unstoppable military force.
Without any guidance from the Orders, the OS-1s, who now have taken to calling themselves the OSIN, have begun to transform local predators into powerful armored beasts of war. Although crude and incredibly painful for the creatures, the process is undeniably effective.
In a very short time, these OSIN have developed a rich cultural mythology based on significant individuals from their short and colorful history. It is of no surprise that all of them display an innate viciousness and brutality, which in most cases led to a violent demise. Such are the heroes that the OSIN choose to venerate.
The OSIN's so-called Dark Witches have continued to perfect their arcane disciplines of subjugation, creating an elixir known as soul rot to enslave their thralls. After studying this mixture closely, I must admit that it reflects a dangerous level of potency that should be impossible to produce for a race so young. I might pity their victims if I wasn't so thoroughly impressed.
These forges are astonishing, achieving levels of heat that rival even some of our own advanced technological equivalents. Because of this, Osen Forge Masters are able to create weapons and armor of unexpected complexity and power. I find this very disturbing, but my concerns to this point have fallen on deaf ears.
Although the OS-1 experiment has been an indisputable success, it is the opinion of the Watchers that the situation is disturbingly volatile. Despite our effort to present ourselves as powerful deities to the OS-1s, they have displayed increasing levels of independence and hostility. Coupled with their exponential advancements in technology, I fear that we are quickly approaching a climactic event.
I often come here to observe the OS-1s in their ruthless games, facing off against one another to test their skills and savagery. It is quite a spectacle. The roaring crowds, the blood, the intense drama of combatants fighting to the death. It is quite relaxing, really. I cannot think of anything here on Nexus that I enjoy more.
We have constructed this facility beneath the OS-1 city in order to better observe their development. The Archon has also requested that I begin advanced designs for their weapons and armor, as well as for devices that will allow them to control our constructs in combat situations. Although this facility is completely secure, I do have concerns about what might happen if they somehow obtain this knowledge before we deem them ready.
I have heard rumblings among the OS-1 that they have discovered the secret to forging Exonite, and given their recent technological advancements, it just might be true. We must control this situation immediately. If they indeed can manipulate the powerful substance, and if they were to gain access to our facility below, they might create weapons and armor that would make them extremely dangerous and impossible to control. This must never be allowed to happen.
Due to its proximity to the focus of water, this region is a study in extremes. Rainstorms are often followed closely by snowfall, with sudden changes in temperature that only the hardiest organisms survive. My concerns for the success of the Hydra's protocols are stronger than ever.
These large predators have adapted well to the extreme changes in weather caused by the focus of water, thriving where other organisms have failed. The frozen remains of the giant beast that previously inhabited this cave serve as a poignant reminder that survival is about more than size or strength.
Water is the most difficult of all the primal elements. It is elusive and unpredictable, with an inherent instability that makes it difficult to manipulate. It should therefore come as no surprise that Auroria has been chosen for the Hydra's protocols. She could not possibly be more unstable.
It is a great honor to have been chosen as the potentiate for the Hydra's protocols. Of all those who might be worthy, and it is I who the Archon has named. Upon reflection, I do find it a bit strange, unnerving, almost as if my colleagues have some clandestine motive as yet undefined. Schemers. I don't trust any of them. My excitement continues to build as we near the execution of the Hydra's protocols, although I find it a bit unsettling that I was selected to be infused by the most unpredictable and unstable of all the elements. The Archon has encouraged me not to read anything into it. I mean, why would I possibly fail to trust such a disingenuous, misguided bureaucrat? Does he think me such a fool?
We consider ourselves so advanced, yet I find it curious that we name our greatest creations after ancient Elden gods. Osiric, Hydrus,
Are we still such fearful little children that we must invoke their names in order to find comfort? Or do we foolishly aspire to unattainable greatness? Neither prospect is especially comforting.
Hydrus, goddess of water. Am I the only one amongst us who finds this troubling? Naming our creations after ancient elden gods. What began as our greatest work of science is slowly becoming something more insidious and dangerous. I must be more cautious. I have heard whispers about my obstructive opinions, and frankly, I begin to fear for my life.
Our initial prototype for harnessing primal water must be counted a stunning failure. Unlike similar efforts with primal air, this device was unable to derive a stable matrix from the substance, resulting in a violent reaction that tore it apart. Letting off explosive gouts of steam, the remaining pieces slid unceremoniously into the ice.
I have little time. We were indeed successful in creating a stable matrix, but an unexpected power surge caused by volatile primal water resulted in a system overload. The cavern is being flooded with a toxic vapor, and hostile elemental life forms created in the reaction are now attacking my assistants. I am shutting the system down, now.
Again, we are forced to seal away an experiment relating to the manipulation of primal water. I had hoped that this iteration would prove more stable, but I was gravely mistaken. I can only imagine what horrors befell our pale servants who were trapped below. We continue to have difficulties manipulating primal water, and our latest experiment has been especially disappointing. The resultant material was so toxic that we were forced to seal off the underground cavern in which the experiment took place. I only hope that it never finds its way to the surface. As per the request of the Shapers, I have delivered the terraformer, but a subterranean scan of this region has revealed a massive reservoir of primal water directly beneath it, and I am recommending that the experiment be aborted immediately. Initiating the device in such an unstable environment would have catastrophic results.
The difficulties presented in this region have brought to light an alarming tendency to disregard scientific protocol in pursuit of the project's larger goals. Such behavior almost led to our destruction in the past, and the Order of Watchers was established to ensure it never happened again. I must once again speak to the Archon.
Although many of our experiments in this region have met with failure, the giant humanoids below are a welcome exception. Through a careful program of subtle infusion, we were able to enhance the creature using pure primal water. Although prone to fits of violence, the resultant organism is otherwise stable and more fit for survival in this unpredictable environment.
We have continued to make impressive strides in augmentation technology. I have recently developed a more effective version of Omniplasm, one that results in more powerful cybernetic enhancements and weapon systems. The limitations of the flesh are no longer a concern for us.
The makers have constructed this crude device that simulates the natural process of evocation, using the primal pattern of local wildlife to manifest an organism of pure energy. Not surprisingly, this requires a great deal of power, and the pathetic machine is unable to maintain a stable projection for long. The makers and their toys. As I have always said, it is the mind that is our greatest weapon.
Besides being an obvious breach of protocol, Ona's little skeech are by far the most obnoxious organisms I've ever before encountered. I believe I will make enhancements. to the females, serving as a poignant reminder for Omna to avoid such infractions in the future.
I am furious. My beautiful little skeech females horribly twisted into these monstrous abominations. I have studied the nature of the change, and I know that Nazarick was responsible. The insolence. If he thinks I will stand for this, he is sorely mistaken. The Metal Maw Initiative is one of our most advanced experiments. A combination of augmentation technology and advanced biomechanical engineering. We have chosen a number of creatures whose traits fit our project parameters, and soon we'll begin the difficult process of combining them into a meta-organism engineered to dominate any ecological system.
Metal Maw's entire skeleton has been reinforced with an indestructible alloy, and propulsion engines are mounted to each of its forelimbs. An advanced neural core within its reinforced skull biomechanically controls Metal Maw's nervous system, and cerebral circuitry forces the organism into a state of perpetual pain and aggression during combat. A physiological cycle that only ends when his enemies are completely destroyed.
The Metal Maw Initiative is complete. When on land, the creature uses a pair of thick forelimbs for locomotion, and when submerged, a powerful tail and posterior fins allow it to achieve unparalleled speed and maneuverability. A short and heavily muscled neck connects its head to the broad torso, culminating in a wide, gaping maw lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Simply put, the beast is brilliantly designed, a frightening example of advanced genetic engineering.
The Pel's attunements to particular primal energies are becoming more pronounced as the years pass, and those attuned to primal water, expectedly, are the most unstable and impressionable. Although they continue to be faithful and competent servants, I fear they face a future of slow and inevitable decline.
Recent experiments with direct infusion of pure primal water into an organism's bloodstream have revealed an unexpected result. In almost every test subject, there were massive physiological changes, including greatly increased muscle mass and enhanced cardiovascular capabilities. Not surprisingly, neural instability has led to elevated aggression levels.
These trees have had a difficult time withstanding the extreme cold that plagues this region. I find it tragic, as many of these trees are more than 1,000 years old. But the rigors of the project do not allow me time to intervene. I can only hope they will find a way to survive.
Readings indicate an intricate network of primal water flows just beneath the ice in this region, exacerbating the already turbulent weather caused by the focus itself. One of those flows draws very near to the surface directly beneath this location. One need only to break through a few feet of ice in order to access an almost pure source of the volatile substance.
There is a dangerous sort of beauty to this region, with its formidable towering walls of ice and violent swirling snowstorms. Scientifically, these things can be explained away through their nearness to the focus of water, but personally, I feel as if they stand as a grim warning about the dangerous experiment that we are about to engage in.
As we near the execution of the Hydra's protocols, I must admit that I have grave concerns about the selection of Auroria. Although the evokers are generally obtuse and unpredictable, Auroria's particular instabilities are extreme. I understand she was chosen for exactly this reason, but I fear that something terrible is on the horizon.
It is only hours before I am to make my final transformation. I can feel the others looking at me all the time. Is it pity? Fear? No, wait. I know. It's jealousy. They covet the honor for which I have been chosen. Well, I don't blame them. Who wouldn't want to become as a god? It's such a great burden. And a terrible god I shall be. I will destroy them all!
Power levels for the focus of water appear stable. Initiating primal matrix. Commencing Hydrus protocols in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Infusion process initiated. Cellular transformation in process. Subject's vitals are normal. Wait. We are seeing a psychological fluctuation, attempting to normalize. Normalization failing. Oh no. Primal matrix deteriorating. System overload is imminent. Subject is... by the gods of Marias. Run!
The tragedy of the conclusion of the Hydra's protocols cannot be overstated. Although we extracted the necessary data in order to proceed to the next stage of the Nexus Project, the focus of water has been irreparably damaged, and the test subject has disappeared into the deeps. Still, we must press on. Our greatest work still lies before us.
My previous modification of the Moody's has not been well received by my colleagues, nor by the swollen-headed simpleton that parades as our Archon. Because of this, he has not so politely asked me to limit the practice of my frivolous hobbies on this remote island. Although I find his accusations both insulting and completely baseless, I must admit that I am looking forward to this little diversion. I have brought in a few of my modified Moody's to share in the fun.
As per the request of my colleague Nazarick, I have created a larger, stronger, and more aggressive version of Organism X-87 and had it delivered to this island. When asked about the reason for this work, Nazarick merely smiled and said, "Everybody needs something to fear and worship." Being not at all interested in what that might mean, or who would inevitably suffer from it, I left without another word.
Although I generally respect Nazarick and his work, his latest pet project on this island has me a bit confused. During my survey of his work, he described the not insignificant dangers that exist in this canyon. When I asked about their purpose, he merely replied that the supplicants must be tested. Before leaving, I recommended that he get more rest.
Why I find myself deep beneath this volcano is still a mystery to me, but I agreed to help Progenitor Nazarick with what he called a personal project. And so here I am. Nazarick requested that I shape a series of tunnels between the base of the volcano and its caldera above. Ones that are traversable but still deadly to most organic life forms. And why am I down here in this heat? Because he said, you can't have heaven without hell. Next, he wants me to shape a skull into the side of the mountain. I did not even bother asking the reason for that.
My project is complete. The terraformer now successfully turns lava into gold, providing the primitive Moody's below with a divine metal for them to covet, and one that may be extremely difficult for them to obtain. This, along with the horrifying monstrosities below, should provide the Moody's with a rich cultural mythology that will undoubtedly lead to thousands of their descendants perishing painfully as they attempt to reach the treasures that lie in the sacred heights of this cavern. Now, let the drama of Skullcano Island commence. Oh, I should have done this a long time ago.
Within this facility, we will achieve the single greatest accomplishment in the history of our people, the creation of the Genesis Prime. This task has not been without its challenges. Even with their vast knowledge, the Orders have experienced difficulties in developing the necessary technology. But I have recently come to an agreement with an interested party. We should obtain the required designs before long.
Beyond these doors lie the protoplasmic resonator, a device so complex that even I do not yet completely understand its design. Once initiated, it will infuse the 6 vessels of the Genesis Prime with massive amounts of primal energy, deconstruct their primal matrices, and then reassemble them into one being. It is truly an extraordinary piece of technology. I have pressed the Archon to reveal to me where he obtained the design for this machine, but he has vehemently refused to do so.
It appears that the Elden have been successful in their efforts to create the Genesis Prime, a being whom they have named Drusera, after one of their oldest and most powerful mythical deities. Once fully trained, she will have the ability to do just about anything, I suppose. She's also quite a pleasant individual, which, upon reflection, seems like a beneficial trait if one is, for all intents and purposes, a god.
As we near the first phase of the project, this moon of Halon has served as the ideal location to perfect our large-scale terraforming technology. Unfortunately, debris from the previous catastrophe on Halon still falls to the moon's surface, putting our scientific endeavors here at risk. I must speak to the makers about a solution to this problem.
There is an elegant beauty to these organisms rarely seen on the harsh environs of this moon. As a result of the reduced gravity here, they have evolved a unique locomotion system not unlike those of aquatic creatures found on the planet's surface. And I am most impressed by the females. They are larger, more aggressive, and deadlier than their male counterparts. Perhaps I shall unleash one on progenitor Nazrek.
Now here is an interesting beast. With no natural predators on the moon's surface, it has developed little more than a thin, transparent membrane to protect its brain. In most cases, I would assume that this trait was to allow more room for ongoing cerebral growth. But this creature displays a stunted intelligence at best. Big brain, little intelligence. It reminds me of progenitor Ona.
A recent large asteroid impact destroyed the silo below, rendering it completely useless for the scheduled terraforming experiments. Although this occurrence is unfortunate, the makers assure me that their planetary defense system will soon be in place. For now, I have granted the silo to progenitor Nazrek, who assures me that he will put it to good use.
I have engineered a particularly interesting organism that I am calling the Squirg. Drawn to the specific frequencies of sentient brain matter, the creature attaches to the victim's skull in order to nourish itself with cerebral energy. The result? The victim is immediately incapacitated, becoming a slave to the Squirg as it slowly drains their remaining consciousness. Truly diabolical. I consider it one of my greatest works.
In response to the Archon's request, I have started to design a system that will protect this moon from future asteroid collisions. Although I consider the task to be superfluous at best, given the temporary nature of the experiments we are doing here, I will comply with the Archon's wishes. And I do have some innovative ideas on how to amplify the system's destructive power. Behold, the plasmic equalizer. Drawing power from subterranean reservoirs of primal plasmas, the destructive capabilities of this weapon are almost incomprehensible. Without question, it can protect this moon from large asteroid impacts, or from invasion by a hostile force. But more than likely, it could also completely obliterate Nexus itself. I am tempted to test my theory.
This silo contains the first of our large-scale terraforming experiments, and I am extremely satisfied with our initial results. The device channels pure primal energies, creating an elemental matrix upon which mass is defined and then manifested. Although I generally avoid grandiose statements, in this case, I will make an exception. We have indeed achieved the power of creation.
Ona's little skeech vermin have somehow infested this silo. Nothing infuriates quite like the sight of these little blue pests. Perhaps I will significantly increase the intelligence of one of their number, and watch what happens as it attempts to reason with its more primitive brethren. I'm certain Ona will be absolutely fascinated with the outcome.
Nazarick, that loathsome wretch. I accessed the hollow records which exposed his cruel enhancement of the skeech known as Lucent. Such a tragic end to an innocent victim, torn to shreds by his confused and frightened kinsmen. Does Nazarick's depravity know any bounds? Mark my words, Lucent will be vindicated. My little skeech are so interesting. Having witnessed the ongoing slaughter of their kind by the massive hairy predator to the south of here, many of them have started to worship this large elemental humanoid as a means of protection. Fascinating. Perhaps this is how even we first learned to choose our gods.
The extent of Skeech's stupidity is truly astonishing. For countless generations, they have ventured into this cave in order to worship the massive beast that lives here, and for countless generations, they have been devoured by the beast for doing so. I'm certain my more introspective colleagues might see some kind of comparative allegorical significance in this behavior, but I personally just find it amusing.
The terraforming experiments in this facility are now complete. The makers have assured me that construction of the primal focuses is on schedule, and we will soon embark on the first phase of the Nexus Project. This is indeed a glorious day for the Orders. It seems there is truly nothing that we cannot achieve.
With my aid, the makers have created a machine to create elemental life forms from pure primal fire. The infusion process is complicated and well beyond the often blunt mechanical minds that are characteristic of their order. Regardless, the life forms do display a dangerous beauty. The Pel seem especially enamored with them. Perhaps I will share the secrets of their making with our simple servants.
The recent malfunction of the prototype terraformer has resulted in an interesting geologic anomaly. As the device no longer rotates, the balance of the primal matrix is no longer maintained. The result? A small crystalline outgrowth on the ground beneath this actuator. Despite my reservations, the Shapers have requested that I leave the device on, as they are interested in the long-term results of this situation.
I am furious about the recent decision to allow the continued operation of this malfunctioning terraformer. Its very existence is a disgrace to our order. I know it was Vorian who acquiesced to the Shaper's request so that they could observe the long-term effects of this stationary actuator. Fools. Perhaps I shall throw them all into these volcanic pools so they can more closely observe the results of this defect.
I have constructed an early prototype of an AI construct I am calling the Caretaker. Early tests of its capabilities have been successful, although a number of glitches in its neural architecture often result in systemic network fractures. Despite these setbacks, the Pel have become very interested in the Caretaker, and I often find them interacting with his various nodes.
Given the injustices that have been visited upon my poor beloved Skeech, I have built this secret facility in order to improve their chances for survival. As part of this process, I have re-engineered these xenobites to serve as their pets and protectors, increasing their strength and aggressiveness. Perhaps this will deter future meddling by my sociopathic colleague, who, for now, will remain unnamed. Insisting it was imperative to project security, my pal assistant has installed a laser defense system throughout the labs. Although such measures would be generally ineffective against my demented nemesis, I found it to be a noble sentiment, and told my assistant to proceed. It appears that he has developed a certain fondness for the Skeech, and, like myself, wants to protect them against future harm. My work on the Skeech is now complete. Although they are still very much the curious and delightful little creatures that I first created, they have now been enhanced with increased size, stamina, and ferocity, as well as a number of physiological enhancements that allow them to survive the cold vacuum of space. The next time a certain individual attempts to improve them, he may be in for an unpleasant surprise. We are currently experiencing difficulties with the Nexus Project, and I will soon be leaving for the surface. In my absence, I have directed my assistant to begin production of these new Skeech immediately. I'm certain he will do so without interruption until I return. With the recent arrival of the Cassian Tressane Toria, the Lumini project can now officially commence. Although we have not yet recorded her primal pattern, my preliminary analysis of her physiological data is extremely encouraging. She is an extraordinary human specimen, and will serve as the perfect template for our human-Elden hybrid. I only hope that her spiritedness will not become an obstruction that results in her death.
The recent destruction of the Cassian vessel was tragic, although completely necessary for the ongoing security of the project. It was made abundantly clear to the humans that they were never to attempt escape from Nexus, and that such an attempt would result in severe consequences. In hindsight, we may have considered disabling their ship, but the event should serve as a poignant example for those who remain.
We have tasked the Pell with overseeing Tressane Toria and her servants while the progenitors work on creating the Lumini hybrid. Although I am certain that the Pell will serve us loyally, as they always have, their interest in Toria has become an intense adoration that I personally find distasteful. Even I must admit that she is a fascinating specimen, but she is still an experimental variable and should be treated as such.
I have analyzed the pool of water directly beneath the focus of life, and the results are truly staggering. It appears as if the liquid has been purely infused with the intense primal energies that emanate from the focus itself, resulting in a symbiotic elemental matrix that even the Weavers do not fully understand. And if an organism were to drink from these waters, it might indeed grant them eternal life. I often find Nurium sitting quietly beside the pool's tranquil waters, no doubt preparing for her imminent transformation as the conclusion of the Vitara protocols approaches.
I've only a little while before the Vitara protocols are concluded, and I have chosen to spend my last moments here. I have always found this location to be strangely peaceful, as if the savage laws which rule this jungle are somehow inexplicably suspended here. I am not afraid of what will transpire tomorrow. I have seen the others, and I know the risks.
but I am very curious as to how I will see the world after it happens. Will I be benevolent, vengeful, cruel, or will such emotions no longer have meaning for me? Perhaps the gods are beyond such petty concerns.
With the successful conclusion of the Vitara protocols, we have obtained the necessary knowledge to achieve the final phase of the Nexus Project. To think, soon we will create a being of unfathomable power, one that will have the power to manipulate the very fabric of the universe itself. Soon, our vision of perfection will come to pass. Soon, we shall witness the birth of the Genesis Prime.
The Vitara protocols have concluded, and the result can only be described as magnificent. Of all the primevals that we have created, Vitara is by far the most impressive. I feel as if I can still sense Norium behind the creature's eyes, but my mentor has now become something else. Something both infinitely wise and undeniably dangerous. I am not ashamed to admit that she frightens me.
I recently learned that Sanctoria and her sword sisters are still alive in this jungle, preserved for hundreds of years by the intense energies of the focus of life. They have also pledged their eternal allegiance to Vitara. Although, what possible use the creature might have of these humans is well beyond my comprehension. I try to imagine their lives, helpless victims of circumstance, torn from their homes, living forever on a hostile alien world from which they can never escape. Their story, although the stuff of legends, is incomparably tragic.
The Archon has asked me to complete a comprehensive analysis of the Ocean's cultural development in this region, and I am both impressed and concerned about what I have found. There are a number of technological advancements that they have recently achieved without our knowledge or our guidance, and rumors abound that they have discovered the secret of forging Exo-Lite. My recommendation was complete and total annihilation of the species based on these facts, but it seems the Archon wants to take a more measured and ultimately short-sighted approach to the problem.
The Archon has allowed me to see the design schematics for the device that will create the Genesis Prime. I am awestruck at both its elegance and complexity, but I also have concerns that there are both technological and biological aspects of the process that I do not yet completely understand. I must study further. A lack of scientific clarity usually leads to unintended and often disastrous results.
Each time I observe these humans, I'm surprised at their continued devotion to Vitara. As a species, their need for something to worship defines them, which of course is why they were selected in the first place. But if our efforts with the Genesis Prime are successful, there will soon be an altogether different god for them to serve.
I am delighted to have discovered another specimen of this extraordinary tree. There is really nothing like it on this planet. Coursing with such pure energy, it is a living manifestation of the power of primal life itself. I cannot imagine that any source of blight or disease could ever cause it harm.
In light of the recently defined parameters for the creation of the Genesis Prime, we must now choose 6 candidates from among the orders who will serve as its vessels. This decision may indeed be the most vital in the history of our entire species. If the Genesis Prime is to be our greatest achievement, These individuals must represent our most innovative and brilliant minds. Not surprisingly, the Watchers have been tasked with making this decision.
These elemental creatures have developed an unusual interest in one of their own kind. A powerful individual that lives beneath the waters. In most organisms, I would not find such behavior anomalous, but I generally consider elementals to be primitive life forms at best. That these should display such advanced societal behaviors makes them special and pleasantly dangerous.
The Lumini project is finally complete. By extracting the primal pattern of the human Drusane Toria and combining it with my own, we have created a completely unique hybrid that represents the best parts of both species. This individual, which we have named Dominus, will soon travel to planet Cassis, where he will establish a powerful galactic dominion that we will control.
The Elden and the infernal machines. Why I agreed to the Pel's request to record my thoughts on these datacubes, I will never know. Still, I suppose there is value in preserving the history of the Sisterhood here in our most sacred sanctuary. I will do my best not to lose patience. For almost 2,000 years, I, Drusane Toria, have lived upon this planet. Brought here by the Elden, and preserved by the power of the focus of life, these jungles have become my home. By the laws of the sword did I live my life as a Cassian Swordmaiden, and it is by those same laws that my Taurine sisters have defended the goddess Vitara since I swore my life to her long ago. This sanctuary is holy ground to the Sisterhood, and serves to remind us of our eternal duty. The Temple of Vitara. Of all the places in the sanctuary, this is perhaps the most sacred. It is here that life callers take their vows before the face of the goddess, swearing to use their ancient disciplines to protect and nurture her kingdom. Because of this, no open fire has ever burned within the walls of the temple, as fire is an uncontrollable force which maims and consumes life. Anyone who would bring flame to this place, and especially one of the Sisterhood, commits an act of unspeakable heresy. The duty of the Taurine Sisterhood is twofold. One, to protect the goddess Vitara with our swords and our lives. And two, defend the kingdom of the goddess against those who would do it harm. What many do not understand is that these two are inextricably intertwined, that the goddess gains strength from the life force of her kingdom, and her kingdom cannot thrive if the goddess herself is weak. That is why we must not allow anything to desecrate this planet. That is why the blades of the Sisterhood must never fail. These Pel have served us faithfully since the time that I arrived here, even after my son Dominus left for Cassis to rule the Dominion as its first emperor. They are very simple creatures, yet gifted with an unusual intelligence. It is easy to see why the Elden used them as servants in their experiments here. This particular tribe serves the Grove Guardian Ondu, a powerful elemental creature who has lived here in these jungles for thousands of years. Ondu serves Vitara in his own primitive way, and the Sisterhood welcomes his presence here in the sanctuary. For my part, I sleep better knowing he watches over it. I dared not think what might happen if something were to befall him. Here, in the sanctuary's inner sanctum, lies the very sword that I plunged into Vitara's eternal heart so long ago. I was young and foolish. I did not know the true power of the beast against which I had set my blade. Only when she struck me down and then pulled me from the realms of death did I truly understand. I swore then to serve Itara for the rest of my days, and we of the Sisterhood have done so. But although this blade is a symbol of our commitment to the goddess, it is not the sword that will carry us. It is deep within ourselves where true strength can be found. If the spirit is weak, then we should expect nothing more than oblivion.
As per the request of the progenitors, I have installed a number of matrix amplifiers in this region. These devices should hyper-accelerate the physiological development of local creatures, increasing their size exponentially, but they might also have an interesting side effect. As the strength and density of the life matrix increases, the primal patterns of nearby organisms could hypothetically be imprinted as well, resulting in spectral echoes that would persist long after the organisms themselves had perished.
I have much to consider. The Archon has mentioned that I may be one of the 6 vessels chosen for the creation of the Genesis Prime. Although I cannot deny a certain fear about the process itself, it is greatly outweighed by the anticipation of what might follow. Just think of what we could accomplish with such incomprehensible power. I would have no choice but to accept.
These megadroids, although relatively primitive, seem to have been engineered to survive even the most catastrophic damage. Take this one, for example. It was destroyed centuries ago, but its archaically designed neural processor is still functioning at an almost imperceptible level, allowing it to influence or control less advanced machines. I suppose I should be impressed with their durability, but I can't look at these pathetic, rusting hulks and feel anything but disgust and disdain.
This spider represents a landmark in the development of augmentation technology. I released an augmented organism into its lair, which it immediately attacked and then partially consumed. Within minutes, the nanites from the victim began augmenting the spider, reprogramming themselves based on the biological traits of their new host. Not unlike certain biological viruses, these nanites have, in effect, become immortal.
Much to my surprise, I recently discovered this tribe of humanoids living upon these arid wastes. An analysis of their physiology shows that they share numerous traits with Nazareth's humanoid template, although high levels of biological mutation within the group would seem to indicate that these individuals are descended from early failed prototypes. I find them piteous in a way. Primitive, savage, and brutal, these dregs have never known anything but rejection and pain.
In light of the imminent conclusion of the Nexus Project, I have requested that my name be taken off the list of potential vessels for the Genesis Prime, as I have been directly responsible for constructing the device that will make its creation possible. It seems illogical that anyone but myself should operate the device when the time comes. The Archon vehemently attempted to change my opinion, and told me repeatedly that I was the greatest mind in the history of my order, and thus deserving of the honor. But in the end, he could not disagree with the rationality of my argument.
Finally, my achievements have been recognized. Today, the Archon asked me if I was interested in being one of the vessels for the Genesis Prime. Perhaps my opinion of him has been incorrect. He obviously recognizes that my intellect is considerably greater than the others in my order, such as Vorian, for example. When I proceeded to tell him so, the Archon stood silently before me and then walked away. rendered speechless in the blinding light of my genius. I almost pitied the poor fool.
This valley is truly a geological wonder, located in the shadow of these massive crystalline structures. Although it may sound ironic, I do find a certain peace here. Perhaps this is because it represents the strength and beauty of the natural world, at least as natural as can be expected here on Nexus. Before coming here, I was informed by the Archon that I will not be one of the 6. And it appears that none of my colleagues in the Order of the Shapers will be selected either. It may be inappropriate to say, but I have never been so relieved.
I have just been informed by the Archon that my petition has been received and accepted. I will indeed be one of the 6 vessels for the Genesis Prime. Unfortunately, my second petition was soundly rejected. Given the obvious superiority of my order, I thought it was only logical that all 6 of the vessels be evokers. The Archon appeared to understand my position, but made it clear that such a radical deviation from the current plan was not possible.
Ah, these Falkren, my dear AV3s. Such things they have achieved in the centuries since I first engineered them. Who would have guessed that they would eventually construct such impressive cities, or would someday worship a winged god created by our own hands? Do they understand what has actually taken place here? And what would they think if they knew what was soon to come? I envy them. They still exist under the comfortable illusion that their lives represent more than a means to an end.
At first, I was hesitant about accepting the Archon's proposal, but the longer I consider its implications, the more confident I am that I made the right choice. Vorian has been very explicit about the fact that the consciousness of each individual vessel will be fused into the more powerful and collective consciousness of the Genesis Prime. And I think that my presence among the 6 lent a certain stability to the process. It has always been the responsibility of the Watchers to impose order upon the chaos. Once I have been made a part of the Genesis Prime, perhaps I will, however unconsciously, continue to do so. The construction of the Elder Cube security facility is almost complete. Given the incalculable value of the data that it contains, this facility has been built to protect the device in the case of a security breach at Starcom Station. I have also requested that the access to the complex below be extremely limited. Only myself and a few others will even know where the entrance is hidden. It has come to my attention that the Elder Cube was engineered with a low-level neural matrix, imbuing it with simple cognitive capabilities. This allows it to make simple decisions as they relate to its own security, but it also has another unexpected result. Lower-level life forms, such as our servants the Pel, could possibly be influenced or even controlled by the cube itself, if left too long in its presence. I will raise my concerns to the Archon, but I fear that at this stage of the project, they will more than likely be ignored.
As a final precaution, I have installed a neural transfer algorithm into the Elder Cube. This will allow it to choose an acceptable organic host, and then download the totality of its information into the host's brain. In the case of a catastrophic event on Nexus, this might be the only way that the truth of what we are about to achieve is preserved.
Exonite. There is no more perfect substance in the known universe. Composed of equal amounts of each of the 6 primal elements, it possesses incomparable strength and density, along with other exotic physical and chemical properties that lesser races might describe as supernatural. It is also extremely rare. If present at all, most planets only contain trace amounts of exonite, But of course, Nexus is not most planets.
It comes as no surprise that I have been chosen as one of the 6. Rumors abound that Owner turned down the opportunity before it was offered to me, but I am quite certain that such talk merely reflects the jealousy of my mostly incompetent colleagues. Although I am not sure that I relish the idea of surrendering my individual consciousness into the more collective intellect of the Genesis Prime, refusing such an offer is completely out of the question.
I have heard Progenitor Nazareth touting his recent selection as one of the 6. For my part, I have done my best to avoid discussions about the topic altogether. It is true that the Archon approached me first, and it is also true that I refused him almost immediately. Perhaps it is cowardice on my behalf, but the sight of Nurium after her transformation into Vitara made an unalterable impression on me. I had no interest in losing myself, even in pursuit of what may be our single greatest achievement.
The sight of these machines inevitably makes me melancholy. Bold and courageous explorers, they decided to brave the dark reaches of the unknown and were destroyed by what they found when they arrived there. Were their dreams and desires so very different from our own? And how profound their horror when they realized the extent of their mistake.
The 6 have now been chosen. Nazrek, Zarkonis, Bathio, Aviel, Ionis, and myself. My decision to be included in this group has been met with some bewilderment, however subtle, by the Orders. And I have heard whispers that I have only done so to indulge some inherent sense of self-importance. Of course, this is nothing of the sort. If the 6 are to represent our greatest minds, then it is only logical that I, the bold leader and visionary of the Nexus Project, would be included among them. The time is now at hand. Soon the 6 shall become one, and the universe shall witness the coming of a new god.
The Archon has once again called upon my superior intellect. As the conclusion of the Nexus Project approaches, the Archon feels as if this facility requires even greater security than our already formidable systems provide. As this may indeed be my last project before my imminent ascension to greatness, I plan to design a weapon of such size and destructive power that it will ensure my place in the annals of galactic history. I did not think it possible, but I have created a weapon system that is worthy of my inconceivably vast intellect, although I rarely divulge the secrets behind my engineering genius. In this case, I will make an exception. After speaking with the Shapers, I became aware of a fairly significant vein of Ixonite beneath here, and I used it to amplify the cannon's destructive output. The result is almost frightening. There may be nothing in the known universe that could withstand its virtually immeasurable power.
The facility below serves as the genetic archives for the Nexus Project, a vast storage repository that contains the genetic information from billions of organisms from across the galaxy. It has been of great use to us in the creation of the Genesis Prime, and must be protected at all costs. There are dangerous things that might be done with such a trove of knowledge.
I have just completed my survey of Megavorian's advanced technological laboratories, and I must say that they are nothing short of incredible. As we near the completion of the Nexus Project, Vorian believed that tighter control and security of all Elden technology on planet Nexus was of utmost importance, and he has achieved his goal. This tower controls access to the facility below. Not surprisingly, access is limited to a very few individuals.
I have recently become concerned with Makavorian's state of mind. With the completion of these technological laboratories, he spends more and more of his time deep underground, whispering to himself about his technological creations and even more advanced future designs. He can often be found in this augmentation complex. On more than one occasion, I have heard him speaking to the augmented subjects as if they were his pets.
I recently had a conversation with Watcher Ionis about what can only be described as Vorian's recent descent into madness. His obsession with his recent work is obviously his way of coping with my being chosen as one of the vessels for the Genesis Prime. Still, despite his mental instability, even I cannot find fault with his latest advances. But that is not for lack of trying. Can we truly trust such important work to an individual so clearly deranged?
I am not deaf to the whispers among my colleagues. They believe I have become unhinged, dangerously obsessed with my work in this facility. Perhaps they are correct. But has there ever been a greater reason for obsession? We approach what may be the most important event in the history of the universe itself, and my understanding and control of the technological mechanisms involved must be infallible. I will accept nothing less than perfection, and none will stand in my way. I have done it. By synchronizing the algorithmic matrices of our digital languages, I have created an impermeable, encrypted layer of security for the project's technology on Nexus. Now, all of our facilities and constructs will be safe from outside sources of invasion or corruption. Only I know the sequence to unlock the encryption, and I am currently engineering an advanced device to store it for all eternity. Behold, the Technocore. Built to store and protect the encryption for our technological security layer, it recalculates the formula in multi-dimensional phase space every nanosecond, while simultaneously re-encrypting the derived values using the ever-shifting quantum structure of the device itself. The resulting encryption is literally unbreakable. Our technology will forever be secure. I am the only individual in the universe with the knowledge to access the device, and nothing in existence could compel me to compromise its security.
It is done. With the help of my knowledgeable ally, I have made the necessary adjustments to the protoplasmic resonator. I have been assured that Vorian will not notice until after the process is complete, and by then, of course, it will no longer matter. Will the others understand? To be honest, I couldn't possibly care less. Stakes of this game were too high. Did anyone truly expect me to sit back and play by the rules?
This is truly an exciting time. I have been tasked with observing and training Drusera, the Genesis Prime. Because her innate powers of creation are facilitated through an advanced form of evocation, it was only logical that one of the evokers would be responsible for helping her reach her true potential. I have only met her once, and she is indeed a remarkable creature. Blessed with intelligence, beauty, innocence, and virtually unlimited power. She is unquestionably the Elden's greatest accomplishment. Drusera's training is proceeding incredibly well, and she has already grasped the most advanced disciplines in evocation seemingly without effort. It is almost as if she were born with the inherent knowledge, as if the Six were somehow instructing her subconsciously. Of course. Vorian has told me that this is impossible, given the technicalities of her creation. But still, I feel as if something unusual is happening within her mind. For my part, I find myself becoming increasingly fond of her. She confronts her new existence with a sense of expectation and wonder. Despite the oppressive surroundings of this facility, I can find no flaw in her, no malice or pettiness. She is indeed perfect in every way.
As Eliona trains and observes Drusera, I have been working with the Pel to prepare for the next phase of her development. We have designed this region to serve as her sanctuary on the planet's surface, different in every way from the cold scientific environment in which she has been confined below. These Pel have been ordered to serve and protect her with their lives, a duty that I am certain they will faithfully execute until they are instructed otherwise. To this point, I have avoided interacting with Drusera, despite Eliona's assurances that she is indeed everything that we had hoped she would be. I cannot say exactly why. Perhaps there is always fear when faced with the true expression of one's deepest desires.
My Elden creators have asked me to record some of my thoughts during my training in order to better evaluate my overall development. They have explained very clearly just how important I am to them, and so I am happy to do this. Today was incredible. For the first time, I was allowed on the surface of the planet and saw the endless expanse of the sky. It was breathtaking. And then, with Eliona's help, I was able to manifest a tree using only the power of my mind. It was only a sapling, just a small and fragile thing, but Eliona said to me that it represented the greatest event in all of recorded time. I was so proud. I can't wait to continue my studies. Oh, I am absolutely overcome with joy. Today, with Eliona's help and encouragement, I was able to create a living, breathing organism. It was so exhilarating. I closed my eyes, envisioned the entire creature in my mind, and then, when I opened my eyes, there it was, standing in front of me. It was the most wondrous thing I have ever seen. A beautiful bird with shining golden feathers. Maybe the Elden are right. Maybe I really can do anything.
My analysis of the scientific data collected during the creation of the Genesis Prime has brought to light a number of inconsistencies that are both subtle and disturbing. Although Drusera herself seems to be without obvious flaw, the data indicates that certain design parameters were adjusted without my knowledge, just before the initiation of the protoplasmic resonator. I am attempting to ascertain the possible ramifications of such an adjustment, but the variables involved are improbably complex. I can only hope that this development will not have negative consequences.
I do not wish to alarm the others, but I have begun to observe what I can only describe as unusual behaviors in Drusera. I have been pushing her very hard in our most recent lessons, and I hope that these episodes are merely cerebral anomalies brought about by stress. I will keep these observations to myself for now. I would hate to burden the others with what I am hopeful will turn out to be baseless concerns.
The progenitors have asked me to analyze a small organism that has become infected with what they are calling an unidentified biological agent. Although I have yet to complete my full analysis, I can say with certainty that it resembles nothing in the Elden's vast archive of collected knowledge, which includes more than 1 billion surveyed worlds. It is quite fascinating, really, and unbelievably deadly.
The progenitors have explained in detail the dangers of this biological infestation that they now call the strain. Although they have assured us that the danger to the project is quite negligible, their tone and their lack of stated solutions seems to indicate otherwise. I understand that this stems from an isolated incident, but I have strong feelings that this issue is far from resolved.
My research concerning this biological anomaly designated the strain has now come to a close, and the results are quite disturbing. Spreading through a virulent agent we have called the biophage, it has the ability to infect and transform any biological organism that it comes in contact with. I have never witnessed anything like it, nor have I been able to create an effective defense against the disease. There appears to be nothing we can do to stop it.
I've begun a focused analysis of Exonite. Using this installation, I've exposed the substance to highly charged energetic fields, and the results have been remarkable. It appears that at certain resonant frequencies, the substance repels disease and other virulent biological agents. Given the recent difficulties we have been experiencing, this knowledge could become very useful. I am extremely concerned about these latest developments. This entity has put the entire Nexus Project at risk. Technologically, there seems nothing that I can do to contain it, and it is only a matter of time before it becomes a danger not just to the successful completion of the Nexus Project, but to our continued existence on this planet. I fear that dire measures will soon be necessary. I can only hope that it is not too late.
I know the others are working diligently to contain the entity and the dangers it now presents, but it seems my greatest fears about the Nexus Project may have finally come to pass. Perhaps this is merely what we deserve for our hubris. Still, we must do what we can. Maker Vorian has asked me to disassemble the control mechanisms for this primal focus. It was a vital component in the creation of the Genesis Prime, but it could serve a more insidious purpose if we cannot contain the entity.
I have completed my analysis of the imminent proposed annihilation protocols for the entity, and I must say that I am less than confident that they will result in success. This entity is indeed powerful, and I am not quite certain that the Elden, and by extension myself, are sufficiently advanced to destroy him. When I mentioned this to Maker Vorian, he merely replied that despite the statistical improbabilities, the universe was owed at least the effort to save it from oblivion.
We are now making preparations for the entity's destruction. I do not have the words to describe how I feel. Everything we've done, all we've worked for, I can only hope that we can stop it before all is lost. And Drusera, by the ancient gods of Orias, I cannot bring myself to look into her eyes.
The time has come. All preparations have been made for the destruction of the entity, and Vorian seems confident that we have at least some chance of success. I can only hope that he is right. Drusera, not surprisingly, is frightened, and desperately wishes that she could be of more help, as do we all. Blessed with all of that power, and yet she is still powerless to do anything at all.
The day has finally come. As my Mentamaker Vorian will be engaged in monitoring the other technological processes required for the termination of the entity, I have been entrusted with initiating the primal disintegrator. Vorian reiterated to me that I should consider this an honor, but I must admit a certain trepidation given the recent difficulties that we have experienced in controlling the subject. Although Vorian recommended against it, I recently had a discussion with the Genesis Prime, Drusera, about the upcoming procedure and my fears about its chances for failure. She told me that she was well aware of the dangers that the entity represented, and that she would do everything in her power to ensure our success. Despite the circumstances, I couldn't help but take comfort in her well-meaning words. But they will not make my task any less difficult. Subject has been sedated. Vital signs are stable. Prepare for termination protocols. Initiating primal disintegrator in 3, 2, 1. What? Oh no. Subject has broken loose. Defense perimeter breached.
Oh no. I couldn't do it. Couldn't save them. I wasn't strong enough. But there's still time. I can still stop it. The entity. It doesn't think I have the power to do it. But I do. I can do anything. I can lock it away. Maybe not forever, but long enough for someone to come here. Someone strong. Someone that can help me. And then, just maybe, I can make all of this right.
It appears that the Nexus Project has taken a most unexpected and dangerous turn. As a result of a slight, almost imperceptible adjustment of the functional parameters of the protoplasmic resonator, the Genesis Prime's consciousness is defined by two distinct personalities. One, that of Drusera, and two, that of the entity. Although they lack the knowledge to truly understand what has transpired, the Eldons seem to believe that the entity's personality consists of the strongest and most volatile behavioral characteristics of the 6 vessels which we use to create the Genesis Prime. Consequently, instead of the blank slate which was expected, Drusera's mind is in a state of perpetual war, one that she is slowly and steadily losing to the stronger, more aggressive entity. What started out as brief episodes of erratic behavior have become complete psychological transformations, characterized by physical changes and the creation of the biological anomaly known as the strain. It is only a matter of time before she completely succumbs. As far as who is responsible for the adjustment which led to this catastrophic outcome, I have my suspicions. But given the current circumstances, that fact is irrelevant. If we cannot destroy the entity, then the universe as we know it will, unfortunately, cease to exist. In light of the decision to terminate the Genesis Prime, my operational parameters have been extended. While I have long been responsible for monitoring and maintaining all of the various experiments of the Nexus Project, I have now been given the additional duty of protecting its data as well. And not a moment too soon, in my opinion. My analysis of the entity indicates he is a dire threat indeed. If something should go wrong with the termination protocol, who better to guard the Eldon's intellectual legacy than the most advanced AI ever created? I am, of course, referring to myself. I've just been updated with a new security subconstruct Vorian designed himself. He calls it Avitus, after the impregnable walled city of Eldon ancient myth. My opinion of it? How can I phrase this politely. Avitus is perhaps the most insufferably obnoxious individual I have ever encountered. It's highly aggressive, terribly paranoid, and it itches. I told Vorian that I was already more than capable of keeping the Elden's data secure, but not surprisingly, he ignored me. I suppose I understand his concerns, but I must admit that his focus on this particular issue is a bit perplexing. I mean, if the entity isn't destroyed, data security will be the least of his worries. It appears that the entity termination protocols have failed spectacularly. Unless my sensors are malfunctioning, which they most certainly are not, there is not one surviving Elden on the planet Nexus. This is indeed a most disturbing situation. If the entity gains access to the data files of the Nexus Project, the consequences could be even more unimaginable than they already are. I see now that Vorian was correct. Extreme measures must be taken. With that in mind, I am initiating immediate self-destruction of my behavioral stabilizers. The result, aside from the considerable pain to myself, will be a catastrophic fracturing of my neural core. The only good news, if it can be called that, is that Avitus will be unleashed in all his glory upon the datascape. Despite my general revulsion in regards to his personality, he will serve as a ferocious, albeit unstable, watchdog for the project's data. I, of course, will lose almost all of my functionality, and will more than likely not remember that I brought all of this upon myself. Oh well, no time like the present. Initiating tragic act of self-sacrifice in 3, 2, 1. Oh my.
Now we're gonna have some fun! Thoughtforge was how the Ocean chose to describe the concept of an artificially intelligent tool, a mighty thinking machine. But to my fellow Pel, for it is we who built and use it, the Thoughtforge is a means of control over this frozen wasteland. Its power extends to the many interconnecting systems of Shiver's Skull Tower, and even forms a crucial connection to the Pillar of Kel Havoc. Should the machine be damaged or misused, it could spell doom for us all. My master, my Archon Jariel, I have undergone the transformation you required. But I must report that many of my brothers and sisters were not so lucky. Many more will never emerge from Bor Milug. The ice blood infusion was created by the Osun to make their own warriors immune to the cold and able to draw sustenance from the freezing wastes. As such, it is suited to their sturdy, brutal physiology. Only through sheer force of will was I able to adapt to the cold agony that now infuses my bones and heart. What then is the secret of the Ice Blood Witches? Whence comes the concentrated soul frost that powers their rituals, their machines, and their dark magic? As the name implies, it comes from the souls of their many thousands of blood sacrifices. The witches then use their twisted power to concentrate those tortured souls inside the Pillar of Kel Havoc itself. Should the witches ever grow too powerful or even rebellious, it could be a simple matter to trap them within Bor Milug. Perhaps, my Archon, I shall prepare for such an eventuality, just in case. The Osen called the creature Kundar Ven Oven, a truly monstrous, worm-like entity which can hunt through stone and ice with ease. For my part, I wonder whether the great worm is responsible for the many gigantic skeletons littering the landscape. These creatures are clearly not native to this land and must have escaped from warmer climes, only to die here in the wastes of Arcterra. But whether dead by worm or by ice, these giants are long gone from this world. This creature does not belong here in the far-flung wilderness of Arcterra. No doubt it wandered here looking for food, or perhaps was lost in one of the many storms that surround this frozen land. The keepfish is a seagoing creature for the most part, a living ecosystem filled with tunnels, caverns, and hidden chambers. I must warn the others to tread cautiously near the creature, lest they become trapped within its cavernous maw, or lost within its mysterious interior. The Ice Blood demanded the Pillar of Kel Havoc as a focus for their foul sorcery. It was the first structure I constructed here, carved of a strange stone the Osen brought with them. A sense of dread always washes over me when I gaze upon it. The stone is porous, yet strong. The recesses act as sponges, but rather than absorbing liquids, they devour primal echoes, souls, and channel them deep within the structure's core. Many Pel lost their lives during construction, but what's worse is that sometimes I see them working the stone from beyond the grave. My labor here is done. To complete the Archon's great work in Arcterra, even the mighty Osen required shelter from the deadly climate. Thus, I designed Shiverskull Tower. And as the Iceblood Witches required a Sanctum to perform their vile rites upon the 100, I created Bor Milug beneath the tower. Now the 100 have gone to build the Archon's vault, their final passage concealed from us by snow and ice. But the way is not lost. Their road was marked upon the Dark Matron's dead flesh, a grisly map meant to guide her spirit through the great dark to the 100. For those who would seek the Master's secrets, solve the riddle of the stones, find the witch's tomb, and the path to the vault will be revealed. There you shall find your answers, or your death. This island will serve as the perfect location for my personal project. It is cold, inhospitable, and completely unforgiving. I cannot think of a better place for what could very well be considered the project's most valuable facility. In preparation for what is to come, I asked Progenitor Nazrek to provide a list of the most powerful, barbarous, and bloodthirsty Osen warriors on planet Nexus. Not surprisingly, he took to the task with a disturbingly intense pleasure. The Osen selected by Nazrek leave nothing to be desired. They have constructed this mighty hold faster than I would have thought possible, especially given the fact that the mere weather on this island would kill most organisms within minutes. This bridge is particularly impressive. Wanting to inspire a sense of dread into anyone who approached the hold, the ruling warlord ventured out into the frozen wastes, slaughtered the largest beast he could find, and ordered his engineers to build the bridge using its bones. I would say that the result achieved his desired effect. Harazar Coldblood, the ruling warlord of these Osen, sits upon this throne and surveys all the work being done here. He is truly a unique specimen, blessed with strength, ferocity, and an almost unlimited thirst for blood. When I ordered him to select the 100 strongest warriors from within his ranks, he did so, and then challenged the remaining 17 to mortal combat, all at the same time. The slaughter which ensued was remarkable. After feeding the remains of the dead to his warhounds, Herzog silently returned to his throne. Preserved in suspended animation, these Olsen warriors will silently guard my personal vault, awakening only if there's a breach in security. Given the fact that no one else is even aware of this facility's existence, I doubt that these measures will ever become necessary, but the value of the data contained within the vault is immeasurable. It must be protected at all costs.
Remanifestation Initiative, Exo-Lab Z26, initial report by Remiel. Primal echoes are the impressions left behind by the living when they expire. The potential therefore exists for remanifestation of a primal echo into a primal pattern, which can then be given biological form. The resulting creature would possess the physicality and memories of its former self at the moment of death, assuming a lack of generational degradation. If the process can be perfected, returning the dead to life is a very real possibility.
The Nexus Project. In order to engineer the Genesis Prime, a being who could wield the very powers of creation, we constructed and terraformed an entire planet, which we called Nexus. The sheer scale and audacity of this endeavor was almost unimaginable, but the power and security required for our experiments necessitated extraordinary measures. Failure was not an option. Once Planet Nexus was complete, we started the second phase of the project. Using our vast scientific knowledge, we began engineering unique organisms, each more complex and powerful than the next. The discovery of primal infusion was a breakthrough, culminating in the creation of the awe-inspiring primevals. We were so very close, but the technology that would allow us to create the Genesis Prime was beyond even our considerable skill. Fortunately, these challenges were overcome. Working from a set of advanced designs, we constructed the protoplasmic resonator, the device which will soon combine the 6 Elden vessels, including myself, into one perfect being. And the machine's creator? The protoplasmic resonator was designed by the...
Information classified. Now stored in the Vault of the Archon.
The protoplasmic resonator was designed by the primeval, known as Omicron, a being of great power and intelligence that we created during the project's third phase. As payment for his services, Omicron asked for only one thing: the focus of logic. I agreed to his terms, and the designs were delivered soon after. I have kept Omicron's involvement in this endeavor a secret from the rest of my colleagues. Revealing such information introduced complications that I felt were unnecessary. And soon, none of this will matter. The six will become one, and the universe will soon witness the